It was 6 a.m. on a Thursday when I woke up to my alarm blasting in my ear. I grabbed my phone and turned the alarm off. I was awake now and was glued to bed, so I decided to go on Instagram. That's when I saw it. Someone was standing a foot away from me. My vision was a bit blurry, but I could see what she was wearing. She had long hair and a nightgown with flowers, her legs pale. She was in front of my brother's bed, moving side to side gently while looking at me. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I went under my covers and started rubbing my eyes, and when I accidentally scratched myself, that's when I realized I wasn't dreaming. I pulled my covers off and she was still there. All I could do was call for my brother Jack. I whispered while crying, "Jack, use your flashlight." I said this about 5 times while crying louder. He eventually heard me and woke up and grabbed his flashlight. That's when she vanished and my dog woke up. I was so scared and crying. I told my brother what happened, and after that I still went to school. When I came back home, I told my mom what had happened. What she said still chills me to the bone. She said the house used to belong to a woman who lived with her son, and after she died and her son moved away, my mom rented the house. Needless to say, I am no longer comfortable being in this house. We recently moved out of the house this story takes place in. I am a 15-year-old high school student residing in Florida. I was so excited to move, not only because this house had a pool, but because I was about to finally have a dad. See, I never had one because my real dad left me when I was only 2 years old. I grew up in Illinois, so I was used to the country lifestyle until we moved. We found the perfect place with my mother's fiance. He had 2 children of his own. One was a 17-year-old daughter, and the other one was a 19-year-old son who was about to go to the military. He decided to help us look for a house, and we found this amazing 1-story home with 4 bedrooms, and he moved in with us. I was picking out a room and found the perfect one. It had blue walls and a huge closet. I loved it because I had a great view of the beautiful backyard. The first 3 nights were amazing. I loved it there, and I knew my mom and stepdad had found a great home. On the 4th night, my stepbrother was sleeping over at his girlfriend's house. It was about 2:30 a.m. and I was about ready to go to sleep after playing games on my phone. I remember thinking I heard voices that night. But tricking myself into being scared, I brushed it off as just my mind playing tricks on me. So I closed my eyes, ready to sleep. A few minutes passed and I heard a knock on my wall. I look over and my heart sank as I saw a human-like shadow pass by the wall. Now remember, my stepbrother wasn't home that night and no one was in his room. I sat for what felt like an eternity. Then the shadow passed again, heading the opposite direction it came. I threw the covers over my head. I know, childish, but I was really freaked out. I heard voices again coming from my left closet door. They kept saying my name over and over again, and I felt like my heart was about to stop. The voices stopped for a couple of seconds. And then a voice screamed the most haunting scream ever into my ears, saying my name and asking if I was scared. I jumped out of the bed and ran to my parents' room, diving in between them. I remember looking at their door frame and seeing the outline of a man standing there, but no one was there. I closed my eyes and basically cried myself to sleep. And ever since I switched rooms with my sister across the house, I've never been bothered again besides the occasional scratches in my ceiling. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't leave my room that one night, because the next morning, we found a trace of black ash and little strings of rope in the closet. So creepy, ghost shadow, let's not meet again. To start this story off and to give a little insight about me, I am an 18-year-old female who grew up in Michigan and have lived in the area for as long as I can remember. On one particularly hot summer, me and a couple of friends, a total of 6 people, including my boyfriend, let's call him Tony, and my older brother, let's call him Brad, decided we were gonna go camping for the weekend since it was really nice outside. Tony's parents had owned a cabin way out in Ludington, surrounded by a huge wooden area with a personal lake and no neighbors for at least 4 miles. But being stupid teenagers, we didn't really think about that. All we were ready for was to party like any normal teens would. Well, after being there for 2 hours, the fun had started. Tony's friends had brought tons of alcohol and weed to last us the entire weekend. At around 12 a.m., we had a huge bonfire going, and as we talked and laughed about events in our lives, we were so distracted that we didn't notice that my brother had literally frozen his eyes onto one section of the woods. Mind you, we were all intoxicated and high at that time. Eventually, our talking ceased when Tony realized that my brother had an emotionless expression on his face. "Hey dude, you alright?" he asked Brad. Silence. Brad didn't reply or even make any movements that would indicate he heard him. After that, I started to get scared, as well as the 2 other girls there. It took a lot for my brother to act that way. Eventually, I was the first to catch on that he was excessively staring into a specific spot in the woods. I turned my head and followed his gaze the best I could. And when I finally caught on to what he was staring at, my heart dropped. There, right fucking there, was at first look a dog. Well, that's what I thought. It was some person's dog that wandered off, but then my brain kicked in and I realized there weren't any neighbors for miles. How could there be a dog? My mind started to race while Tony still tried to get Brad to speak or even move. In one motion, this thing stood tall. And when I say tall, I mean fucking gigantic. It had to be at least 6 feet tall. Everyone's seen it then. How could they not? Everyone else gasped as they finally realized why my brother was still as a stick. No one moved for what seemed like hours. Tony was the first to talk. "No tail," he mumbled. No one heard what he said but Brad, and I swear to you, when I say his eyes widened as big as pan saucers, that freaked me out immediately. "What did you say?" one of the girls asked. "It has no fucking tail," he hissed at her, and my heartbeat stopped. He was right. There was no tail on that thing. Suddenly, my clouded alcohol mind cleared up in a fraction of a second when I finally realized what that thing was. Now I understood why my brother was basically shitting his pants. That thing was a skinwalker. My instincts kicked in right then and there, but before I could nope the fuck out of there, that thing left off a terrible stench, like rotting meat before screaming inhuman-like. The sound was enough to scare the fuck out of everyone. My brother was the first out of his chair. He started shouting native words to the creature, while I told everyone to get the fuck inside. No one questioned me when they've seen just how dead serious I was, especially Tony. He's never seen me so scared, so he knew it was a bad situation. We all hightailed it into the cabin with my brother in tow, still shouting native words at the creature, which seemed to keep it at bay while it gave us enough time to get inside. He slammed and locked the door before turning all the lights off and grabbing a special ash from the kitchen counter. He starts throwing it at every window and every door while chanting. Of course, he had everyone freaked out and basically in tears at that moment. After he was done, no one said a word for a long time. We were all in shock. He grabbed our dad's pistol and had it posted by him for hours. Everyone was entirely too shaken up to even question what happened. We must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke up to my brother packing all our stuff into the 2 cars early in the morning. I understood why. We had a native family. We knew what we were dealing with and we knew it would come back and maybe not alone. Before we left, I did a blessing on the cabin and spoke a few calming words to the still very freaked out girls. We left as soon as everything was packed up. To this day, we still haven't explained exactly to our friends what happened that night, and they never bothered to ask us either.